Music by the You ready, Ian?
Let's go.
Kyle, you ready?
You know it.
Alright. I'm ready too. Let's do this.
We've been working round the clock. We ain't got the time to stop. We've been trying to find a spot just to chill, kinda feel like it gotta be the watch.
Welcome back to episode 5 of the Watch Booth. I am your host, Kyle Jones, with my co-hosts Ian and Jordan.
What's up?
Today we follow up from last week's. This is part 2 of We're Not Okay. And this episode is dedicated to my friend, my classmate, my squad leader, Ricardo Torres Jr. We lost him this year in the line of duty. He made the ultimate sacrifice. Rico is called the Tornado. He earned that name in the academy. He was always ready to go, sometimes a little more high-strung than the rest of us, but he had a great heart. And the two things that I know that he wanted in this world more than anything were to be a firefighter and a father. And it's interesting, in our squad, I think we had the most married guys. So me and Rico were like the figureheads for the married guys. We would tell the younger guys like, "No, man, this is where it's at." So we would advocate. And just on a personal level, he's one of the few guys in the academy that I hung out with outside of the academy. And, you know, we talked philosophically, spiritually. Very solid guy. He loved what he did. He was he was probably one of the most excited when we finally got our bunker gear. But one of my greatest memories of Rico was we had been getting our behinds handed to us in the academy. So a lot of us started staying after to do extra, working on our chopping, roof techniques and stuff like that. And he and I decided to stay back with a couple other guys. And his wife, she was like pissed, like she didn't want to tell him she had a secret. She was like, "Oh, dude, you gotta stay." So, she comes to the academy and she comes to me, she goes, "Listen, I couldn't wait anymore." So she tasked me with the idea to get him to go see her without, giving it away, but also because if she shows up to the academy, he's gonna freak out like, "Yo, why is she here? What happened? Something must be wrong." So I had to try to figure out how to get him to go, leave the area to go talk to his girl without like tipping him off. It failed miserably. He was like, he freaked out. He's like, "Oh, she's here." And I was like, damn, I failed. But the scene that would follow was probably one of my fondest memories, not just of the academy, not just of Rico, but in life in general, because it was just a beautiful thing. So he walks away and my boy Pittman walks up and I go, "Yo, Pitt." I was like, "Stick around." He's like, "Everything okay?" I was like, "She's gonna tell him she's pregnant." So he's like, "Word." So we just stand there in the distance and, he goes up to her, he gets down on one knee and he's talking to her because he's worried. He's like, "Is everything okay?" And it's like a vignette because you don't know what they're saying now, so you can only imagine. But she says something to him and this guy jumps up like he's bouncing around. You could see he's so ecstatic. And I mean, that to me was a beautiful scene. Like, I obviously know what she told him. But I mean, this kid was on top of the world. And that was Rico. Everything he did 110, 120. Sometimes it wasn't the right thing, but he still did it 120. That's why he earned the name Tornado. And just, he kept the academy interesting, kept it lively.
Yeah. Jordan, have you maybe you want to talk about how your paths have crossed with Rico recently?
So the first time I met him, I was doing overtime on his shift. And I heard about him, but I didn't, obviously I didn't know him, right? So want to say, the first time I met him, we were in the watch booth at Sixes, and so I was tillering that night, and I want to say he was on the pipe, and he was sitting on the bench, and somebody on his shift said something to him because he got a splinter in his butt, and I think this was I want to say this was the second time this, yeah.
What?
From the wood, the bench.
From the bench?
Yeah. And this was the second time that it happened, and I guess they had got on him about it the first time, and he was like real tight about it.
I can only imagine.
Right. But so he was like, "Oh man, this shit keeps happening to me." They joked about it a little bit, and then so I went back I was getting ready to go work out, and Big Boz was back there working out, and Rico was on the treadmill. Now, if you know anything, right, about the fire department, when you're a rookie,
because this is like not even a year in. Right?
No.
This is real early.
Yeah, he's
right?
still, I think he's still a probie.
Yeah.
When you're a rookie, right, you sit to watch.
Yep.
I mean, there's a rotation, but it's kind of like an unspoken thing. Like
you
if
gotta
you're
earn your spot.
You sit there as long as your shift lasts.
right. So I looked at him and I was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, and very matter of fact, he was like, "Getting ready to walk on the treadmill." I was like,
It's Rico.
I looked at my watch and I was like, it's like 5:20, right? He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You the probie on this shift, right? You should be in the watch booth." And he was like, "Oh shit, you're right. So we were getting ready to I was getting ready to drink my pre-workout in a box hit. And I want to say this was his first box. And we go, it was a big fire, second alarm. And I heard nothing but good things. I know he was in there. They said he was in there. He was being a bull, just wrecking stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so we got back to the firehouse, and we're doing our routine of cleaning our equipment and stuff like that. And so we got the 35 out, the ladder, and we got like 2 or 3 guys on the ladder, and he's like scrubbing like hard. And
Told you 120%.
he was scrubbing. I mean, he was scrubbing this thing hard. And so I was like, so I had said to him, I was like, "Yo, you doing a real good job scrubbing that." I was like, "Yo, I'm about to go up and take a shower. Maybe you could bring that brush in the shower and scrub." Right? And obviously breaking balls, right? And he looked and he was like,
He lost it.
he was like, "What kind of grown man says that to another grown man?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And you could see everybody on the shift, and they knew him already, right? So they knew that he would get fired up, right? So they all looked. And if you know anything about firefighters, you know that the second you let them know what your button is, they're gonna push it, right?
Yeah, especially that shift. That's a fun shift.
Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, it's go time. It's go time." And it was a Saturday night, so it was steak night, right? But we didn't get our steak till about 10:30 because the fire.
Yeah.
But so I was just like, "What's the matter? I'm not your type." And he's like, "Yo, you got to be kidding me, yo." Like he kept getting tight. So I kept breaking his balls about it.
Did he turn red yet?
Oh, he was ready as soon as I said it. And then we were sitting down to eat, and I guess I sat in the seat next to him, or in what his assigned seat is, right? And so I was like, "Oh, this is perfect." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Now you can cut my steak up for me,
Oh my
And he was like, "Yo, this dude don't stop, does he?" He's like, "Yo, he was tight, and he took it right. He obviously he was. You knew he was, fired up, but he obviously handled it with class. So every time I would go on his shift, I would break his balls about it, or there was a couple of times he wasn't there, and I remember sending him a video of the brush in the shower with the shower running. And I was like, "I'm waiting for my scrub," and he was like, "This fucking guy," And so for a while, that was kind of our relationship. And then we, we kind of started, like, really, when I was working with him, we started really talking about, obviously I have my music and I have a clothing line, and his wife has a clothing line.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about, he was telling me about how his wife did, her clothing line, and he was like so impressed in how she was able to do it and that she had to drive to do it. And we started talking about how I did my clothing line and like what was the methods that I used for shipping and, printing up the stuff and all that stuff. And we kind of were just like, having a long conversation. He had the hats that he was making that, guys wear, the NH hats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually have one in my pocket.
Right. So we were,
Courtesy of Rico.
Yeah. Nice. The old New Haven Railroad.
And it's warm, bro.
Show that on camera so they can
This
see.
is one of the best hats
Yeah.
that I got.
I really do like that logo.
Yeah.
So, we started talking about that, and just every time, we would get together, we would talk about life, shoot the shit, or as you say, chew the fat, right? Yeah. We would, we would do that, and I could say he was one of the people that everything I posted, like when it came to my project or the clothing line or whatever, he was one of the people that always liked it. He always sent a message to my stories or whatever. And so, that was kind of our relationship, my dealing with him. We had a really ball busting kind of relationship, and
which is super fun with Rico.
It is, because he gets serious.
He gets so wound up.
and
so wound up.
I actually told him one day, I said, yo, you do realize that when you let people know what it is that bothers you, they're gonna bother you. You're dealing with 300 the majority of alpha personalities, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And so you get them all together, and that's what you're going to get. His shift, they were like, oh, God, Rico, he hates you, man. Every time you come in, he's just like, oh, this guy's going to break my balls again. But, I feel like we had a pretty decent, and almost every time he caught a fire, I was there. It was crazy, but we had a really fun relationship, I would say.
Yeah, I will say he really loved it. I mean, he adored his wife, which I thought was very admirable. I really liked that about him. But he also almost not close enough, but almost equally loved community. Remember that day he did overtime with us, and it was when COVID was heavy, and the guy calls the station and goes, "Listen, man, it's my grandmother's birthday. We can't celebrate with her. She loves firefighters. Couldn't you guys please, blah, blah, blah." So we drive out there. We got the lights and siren. We get to stand on the top of the engine. We sing happy birthday to this lady. And when I say, man, he was so excited. He was like, yo, I'm really glad I got to be a part of that. Like, that's who he was. He loved the job, man.
And the city.
Yeah, he loved the city.
Yeah, that was actually a great time because was it? Yeah, you said it was during COVID.
Yeah, it was COVID,
and they're just trying to say happy birthday to the grandmother. We actually have video of it, and it's not clear of us.
Yeah,
but it's a cool thing. I look back at it, and it's all three of us. I want to say it was Doherty, me, you, and Rico.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I was like, hey, listen, fellas, we're gonna go drive down to this, and it was an address that we came to often for medicals. But I was like, hey, fellas, we're gonna go down here and we're gonna sing happy birthday, and everyone was on board. Rico was on board, and when we got there, I was thinking, damn, you know what? Let's go all out. I was like, this is, it's just 'tis the season, and I was like, hey guys, you cool with jumping on top of the engine? And no hesitation. No hesitation. We jumped up there, sung happy birthday, gave him a little siren, a little toot toot.
Yeah.
But, the community loved it. And I saw Rico loved it. I mean, we loved it. We were part of the community, the sense of community.
It was such a positive moment, especially at that time where people were so disconnected. It just, and he loved it. He gravitated to it like, obviously he liked our shift too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a there's a picture that was used a lot especially after his passing. And it was the one where he was in front of Engine 5 and there was a wreath on the back. And I distinctly remember the post. And, obviously, right, newer guys, they're going to be the first ones on the chopping block. But I believe he had got ordered in to work on Christmas that year. And what struck me about it was that he was not, while he probably was missing his family, right, he was not angry about it. It was like, he posted that in almost, and I can't remember the exact wording, but like it was an honor to be able to, right, work and serve his community during the holiday season. And I think that for me, that post embodied like the spirit that he had when it came to
Loved the job.
and again, the city, I think that, and a lot of times that you have issues with that, right? Where people don't necessarily love the city. They love the job, but they don't love the city. And he was just one of those people who really loved both. And so, those are the type of people you love to work with. Those are the type of people you love to be around because you know that, I got a bunch of family that still lives in New Haven and you know that if they respond to your family, they're going to treat them
take care of them
the way that you would want them to be treated. And so, I think that was Rico in a nutshell, man.
Right. And everybody on the department, especially here, we all have like different paths or different stories, different relationships that we held with him. Outside of the Christmas story or the birthday story that we held together. I think the only other time, and I didn't work too often with him just because I was an officer and it was just, we never crossed paths as much. But from that time that we spoke about, and there was another time, I remember, I think COVID just got big and we were all starting to wear masks. And back then, you guys know, it's like all crazy about the COVID. I was like, yo, we got to wear a mask. We got to be careful. We got
put this Tyvek suit on.
That's crazy.
My man Rico, and maybe they did things differently at his shift. He came in wearing a bandana strapped around his face, looking like a Latino gangster, like a cholo, just like I don't remember. I want to say, was it black? I think it was black. And just strapped around his face.
It was black.
And I didn't notice until we were like doing the job, like we were working on a medical. I look back and I'm like, what are you wearing on your face? He's like, oh, this is my mask, and I'm like, no, this can't.
N95.
Well, and even outside that, I told him, I was like, you should be wearing a proper mask, but you're making us look. You're not making us look like firefighters.
Are you
know what I'm saying?
CPR? Or are you going to rob me?
I was like, it doesn't look right. So, that was one of the times that our paths crossed there. But that goes to show you, right? Regardless of how well you knew him, or maybe how well you didn't, it affected us all in different type of ways, both heavy and maybe not so heavy for others. So, maybe we can all share kind of like how his death affected us, right? That night was just like a different night. I remember it was a Tuesday, and
we didn't have tacos.
That was like the biggest, weirdest thing of the night. Usually in the firehouse, we go when we stick to our regiment, right? We stick to what we know. So Tuesdays, taco night.
I think we had
Friday,
pizza that night.
We did. Friday is usually pizza night. Saturday, steaks. Sunday is sauce. So for whatever reason, that Tuesday, I think we didn't get the opportunity to go shop. So we were like, you know what? Pizza's the quickest thing. We'll just get pizza. And from that point, after we had pizza, just something seemed off, I guess. I don't know what it was, but eventually the fire came in and we weren't on the original assignment. We came after the second alarm was called. And I mean, I don't know, I guess just thinking back, it is very surreal because on the way there, that's when we heard the Mayday while we were en route to the location. And
for both of them, actually.
Well, we only had heard one.
No, you remember we were trying to figure out if it was the same guy calling again, and I was like, it sounds like somebody's calling for someone else, and we never really figured it out because obviously we're flying to the scene.
Yeah, so I only remembered hearing one, but while we were on our way trying to figure out, what we needed to do, it's hard to explain, right? Because this wasn't necessarily our first Mayday we had to deal with. So I guess maybe there was like a sense of like comfortableness. Like we were just, I guess I had the idea that when we got there, everything was going to be fine. This person was going to be out. Maybe he just had gotten lost for a second, lost his bearings. Because I feel like we've all kind of been in that sense at fires. I know I've been at a fire and I've kind of gotten lost, got a little disoriented, had to find my way back to the hose, and it was very nerve wracking.
And the crazy thing about it is that it happens far more frequently than
we know.
Than we know, because who really says that, right?
I wouldn't say than we care to admit, really.
Yeah.
Right,
Because
who really says, I was lost in there.
Right, I haven't told too many people. I mean, as an officer, I've tried to work it into like certain trainings and stuff. Like, hey, I've been turned around before, and this is how I've figured out, got my bearings. And maybe it's something that we overthink, right? Because a lot of the time we'll say, if we're getting lost or we're getting disoriented, we go back to our training and we get back on the path, right? So we don't even think about it. That like at that moment, I was a little confused because we just, we continue on.
And remember, the second fire that I went in, the first fire was on the truck. When Kat brought us back to the table and we debriefed and talked about what we learned. That was the first thing I said. I realized how easy it is to get turned around. I found myself after, the fire was put out and the smoke cleared, he sent me on a search. I found myself in a little tight closet and I'm going around just searching. And I realized once the smoke cleared that the entire time I had literally been crawling from the entryway to the apartment to like the balcony area, like back and forth in the same area. But it felt like I was in this huge space, and it's so easy to get turned around.
Right. It's crazy because even in fires after the fact, when we look back and we're like, damn, this is where we were crawling.
Like this is it.
Yeah, it's not. It's unfortunate because a lot of shows out there like paint a visual that we can kind of see or that you can see, and I get it. We've kind of mentioned it before. It really doesn't sell to viewers if it's just a black screen,
exactly.
Right? But the reality is, a lot of the fires that we go to, most of the fires that we go to, it's a black screen. Like you cannot see. You're hanging on your senses of touch, sound.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
And even your touch is compromised because you have these thick gloves, so your dexterity is limited. You don't really know what you're touching. It's just you gotta trust instinct.
Right. So to get back, so we get there, and like I said, it's that
you almost have that false sense
of security. Like everything is going to be all right because we've kind of been in this scenario before where, maybe someone just got turned around. We helped walk them out, and we got there, and that wasn't the case. And just the scene was surreal. Us four, so it was me, you, Saki and OJ. And as soon as we heard that someone was still in there, we ran in. It probably took us a couple minutes at most to get to him.
Felt like an eternity.
The whole once we got to him, that's when it like time felt like it was stretching. Yeah. And it took a long time to get him out, at least how it felt for us.
Yeah.
And we eventually got him out, and I don't know.
You know what?
I still wanted to believe at that point that everything was going to be fine. Just like from the initial reactions of everyone. I mean, there was a lot of hands on him. We were exhausted. We pulled him out, and they took him right away. And it was weird because that happened, and then we had to get back. We had to go right back to work.
We
went right back to.
There was no time
There's no
process.
There's no processing of what just happened. Like we went right back into the fire.
What's so interesting is I remember because I don't think the house got toned. You went over to PA and said, "Hey guys, second alarm." And I remember getting up, and it was really weird. Like you said, it's just weird. Anytime a box hits, I usually get extremely nervous. Right now, mind you, majority of my boxes I've been with you, and at this point we've had such a rhythm and such success. I remember waking up, like getting up, I was a little groggy. He was like, "Yeah, it's going to a second alarm." He was like, "Hey guys, just a heads up, this might be Benton Street 2.0, so let's be prepared. Let's be on our A game." And I remember, I think I made like a joke to you, like, "What do I do on the second alarm?" Right? Because we're always first due.
Right.
I felt no nerves. I felt like this is going to be bread and butter. We're going to go in there. We're going to do what we do. We're going to put the fire out. We're going to be on our way. And then we heard the Mayday. And I remember you saying something like, "All right, guys, let's really lock in. Like, all right, this is getting serious." And even then, all I could recount, because remember, I never encountered a Mayday on a call. I never actually seen the writ have to be activated. So the only thing I had to go on was what they taught us in the academy. So in my mind, when a Mayday's called, guys are in, they grab them and they're out. So like you, when I arrived on scene, I almost forgot about the Mayday. I just imagined whoever was in there was already out. They're probably rehabbing right now, drinking water. You know what I mean? We went and got our assignment. I remember we took our line in, we grabbed some tools. The driver at 15, shout out to the pump driver, before I can even put the line down, he already had our coupling connected. I remember he was like, "Yo, give our line to 15s." And I'm looking, I'm like, "Oh, you already got it." And then it seemed like things seemed like it was gonna slow down. And like before we even got settled, I think we were told to stand by on the grass. And before we even got to the grass, it was like, "Oh, there's somebody in there, go in." I remember throwing on my Scott, and when we got in the building, it was probably one of the hottest fires ever. It was dark. The first two thoughts I had was, wow, it's really hot in here and I can't see anything. I was behind OJ and I was like, "Yo, OJ, I'm sticking close to you." So I think Saki was behind me. And before we made the first turn on the stairs, I wanted to crawl through the floor. It was just hot. It was dark. And it just seemed like we were in there forever. It seemed like time slowed down the moment we turned into that hallway, walked into that smoke condition. And the whole time, my brain was racing like, who could it be?
Yeah, because I wasn't clear when it came over. I think, and you guys will have to forgive us. We have to dance around some details, but we heard engine six pipe or engine 6 hydrant. I forget what we.
I think
it wasn't clear.
Mixed up. Yeah, it wasn't clear.
Wasn't clear who exactly went down.
But even then, I wouldn't know because I think he was on overtime.
Right. We didn't. Yeah. Right.
So it wasn't even somebody on.
Not
the
even
shift.
overtime. He was
doing a special leave.
He was doing a special leave.
Yeah. And so, but my brain wouldn't let go of this idea of who is it. And then I remember, Saki is like, "Let me slide by." He slid by. OJ's like, "Yo, Kyle, I need you to back me up." And then I hear, "We got him." OJ's like, "Back me up." I'm like, "All right." And I felt like, I know I'm typically strong, but this day I felt super strong. Like I told OJ, I said, "OJ, just come. Like I'm not gonna let you fall. I got you." Because in my mind, I'm like, we need to get our guy out of here. They got him, let's go. There was a couple snags. I remember him saying he's stuck. And then it seemed like instantaneously, it was like, because I remember him calling you. He was like the middleman between me and you. He was like, "I'm not trying to lose Ian." He's like, "Kyle, the pipe's right here, boom, boom, boom." He said he's stuck, and then all of a sudden it's like, he's free. And then it feels like time sped up. And we got out of there so quick. And they start taking the stuff off. I can't remember who it was. Somebody gave him mouth to mouth. And I was like, all right. He
I remember who it is. I won't put their name out because I didn't, we didn't clear that with him. But it was a captain on the job.
Yep.
Immediately went right to him.
Beautiful. Perfect. And then I remember like, okay, this is going to be good. He's good. We got him. I forget what it was. There was something that occurred. And I looked him in the face, and my mind was like, all right, all right, this is good. We got our guy out. But it was still like this weird feeling, like everything looks good, but something's not right. And they told me, there's like, take his gear off. So I'm trying to pull off his radio and pull off his gear. And I remember having a moment where I felt like I freaked out. I looked at him, and I knew exactly who it was, but my brain wouldn't allow me to recall. So I'm looking, I'm going, I know this guy. Who is it? And I just remember pausing. Like, I stopped pulling his gear off and everything, and I just stood there like this with my hand on my head. And it could have been 5 seconds, it could have been 5 minutes. All I know is they brought the stretcher in, we lifted the stretcher over the hose, we put him on, they zipped him out of there, and we were back to work. And I just couldn't let go of this idea. I think I remember I ended up asking you again, I'm like, who was it? Because I couldn't process. And then when you said it, it's like it all came back. I was like, of course. And I remember saying to you, like, but he's good though, right? He's gonna be good. We got him out. And like, I just couldn't. And then we find out there was someone else down in there, and it's like, what the hell is going on? It was just so much, so fast. But we were back to work. We're trying to break windows. We're putting lines in the basement. And it was just so much going on. I remember we were going to make the push in the back. And then, the chief's like, no, you can't go in here. The floor is compromised. It was just, everything was so crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. That was just a tough scene to be at. I mean, I still like, just like a lot of the images and the things that happen just still like stick with me. Like, unfortunately, like one of the things that I still see all the time is Rico's face after we pulled him out. So I was one of the last to get out of the building because we had handed him off to you guys to pull him down the stairs. So when I get out, I rip all my stuff off, and there was already like
50 guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys.
Everybody was on him, man.
Right. There was a lot of guys around him. And I saw his face, and to me, I mean, that I've seen that face a lot of times, and it wasn't a good visual.
Yeah.
I already knew at that point it wasn't good. And I think someone had said like he had vomited.
Yeah, he did.
So I guess there was like, at that point, there was like a little glimmer of hope that maybe, there was like, I don't know, something going on that, he'd be okay. We went right back to work. And then shortly after,
they called us out.
Yeah, they called us all to the front. The chief of the department was there, and had announced that he had passed away. And I think I was like in denial, like I couldn't understand.
100%.
Because I think I had spoken to someone, I forget, and I was like, it's gonna be all right, it's gonna be all right. And he had to like remind me. He was like, no, he's gone.
Yeah. That was, I mean.
And the whole scene.
It was surreal. When I looked at his face, I literally had an entirely disassociative episode, to the point where, because at some point we discovered that another firefighter had gone down. And when he called us to the front, I didn't make it there for the initial announcement. All I heard was he made the ultimate sacrifice. And so in my mind, I'm like, who could it be? Like, oh, it must have been the other guy. And it was because, Rico's good. Like, they gave him CPR, he vomited. It's like, we've seen that a dozen times when we revive people, that they're coming back. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And I was like, either way, this is gonna suck. Both guys were my guys. And I don't know. It was just, like you said, it's just in denial.
And was it after he announced it? I remember everybody just standing around. The fire had kind of been put out. We basically just killed it with a truck with a tower, and they just basically killed the fire. But I just remember all of us just standing around in front of the house and just eerily quiet, and no one's really talking. People like got their heads down, like you could see it, you could feel it.
Yeah.
It was just bad, and I just remember all I could think about was just like, I just want to go and hug everyone, and I tried my best, and I walked around to everyone and just tell them I love you. I just want to let you know I love you.
You know, I can't imagine that feeling. I do want to apologize. That was my kid's school. I thought it might have been an emergency when I got up, but I can't imagine dealing with being there. You know what I mean? And what the vibe was at the scene, because you know my experience with the call was a lot different. You know, right? We used to be on the same division, and so this was after I had already got transferred. And I woke up. So I actually, it's crazy because I was going in early for Scotty, and I had text Scotty. So I got up a little bit earlier than normal, and I had a text from my uncle's girlfriend, and the text said, just do me a favor and check on your uncle, because he's not doing well, about the firefighter who passed, and said something about he worked a swap for him, or he was supposed to work a swap for him, or something. The message I couldn't really make out, and I didn't understand what the message actually meant, because in my mind, right, I don't know this happened yet. So in my mind, I'm thinking about Will.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, he's working a swap for Will, but Will passed last week. So I was like, that doesn't even make sense. I don't even understand like kind of what's going on. And you know, so instantly I went to social media, right? Because I'm like, somebody got to know something of what she's talking about. And then I saw an article, right? And the article says, you know, firefighter dies in the line of duty, and another one critically injured. So now I'm like, what the hell is going on? And you know, I called my uncle, and he just was, you know, he was distraught, and he was just like, it's Rico, man. It's Rico. He was like, you know, the kid Rico worked for me. And he's like, man, I don't know what to do. You know, he felt obviously terrible. He felt like he was to blame for it. And so I went over to Sixes. Scotty said, you know, don't worry about it, because I don't remember where they were, but they weren't at 11s at the time. And so I went over to Sixes, where everybody was, and I mean, the second you walk in, you felt it, you know. It just was like nothing I had ever felt before. The you know, when they say the saying, the tension is so thick you can cut it with a knife.
100%.
That was the feeling. And you know, everybody that was on the floor was like, they were down, you know. And then I feel like a lot of the people who really were like, I guess, involved in extricating them were kind of inside, and it just was just crying, you know what I mean?
I never cried so much in my life.
Yeah.
Like after everything happened, I still had my phone, so I texted my family real quick just to let them know I was okay. They sent us to Sixes, and they want us to stay there for grief counselors, and it was.
I think
and
I don't know how I feel about that either.
To give perspective to everyone, this call came in early Wednesday morning. I want to say maybe around like
1, 2.
yeah, something like that. And you know, the fire was kind of put out like maybe a couple hours later. We didn't get to Sixes till like close to shift change. I want to say like 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning.
We didn't leave till like 8.
No, we left way later than that.
Yeah.
I want to say
Yeah. I
we
didn't
left
get
way
home
later.
till like 9. Yeah.
Because I remember my brother reaching out. He says, I'm going to get there as soon as I can. My father, everybody in the department met us at Sixes. And I just remember it would come in waves. Like it's like I would sob uncontrollably.
Yeah.
And it's like I ran out and then it would refill and fucking happen again, just thinking about everything. Because, you know, as far as me as an officer, I was looking at the call a couple ways. So, you know, we had hands on Rico. We were responsible for getting him out. But, you know, in that sense, I was thinking, you know, what could I have done differently, right?
Yeah.
Like from the point of response, right? So me thinking, you know, how we responded, how I positioned the apparatus, the time it took us to get to the house. And then from that point, it's tactfully, right? When we get into the house, how quick we get to him, how long it takes to get him out, the obstacles that we stumbled upon trying to get him out and then getting him out at that point. You know, all those things to me, and even still to this day, I mean, I've done a lot of work to try to like process this, to understand that, you know, this, you know, might have been something out of our control, but this was one of the biggest things to me was like holding guilt on thinking, you know, could we have done something different?
And this was the turning point for me that made me begin to say it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
The will thing was the catalyst. And I said last week, like, that would be the beginning of something that I had no idea I needed. Because I remember being at Sixes and I was talking to Johnny Ho, who's another classmate. He was in the squad with Rico. He was on scene. And he's sobbing, he's hurt, he's stressed. And I remember going from talking to him to the point where I realized that I was freaking yelling. Like yelling. I was just, I don't even remember. I just remember the thought was that I failed my friend. Like, what could have been done better? Why didn't we get, what could I have done? You know, and that's when I realized, like, there's no way that I can go through life pretending like I got this. I am not okay.
So there was that, right? That scenario where, you know, I was holding it hard against me because of what we did and thinking about what we could have done differently. Then I was putting myself in Nuke's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if other people did this, but, you know, Nuke was Rico's officer that night.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of how everything went down as an officer, that's something that you never want to experience, right? Because we're tasked, our main responsibility, I don't care what anyone says, our main responsibility is to make sure you guys come home.
Life safety.
So that made me keep thinking about, I mean, that, I don't know, could that have been me? You know, is a decision that I'll make, you know.
Could have been any one of us.
It could.
Right.
I mean, we're not officers, but it could have been any one of us. And I think that I think after this happened, that was when I really started to realize the gravity of what we do.
100%.
I've been in I don't want to say arguments, but, you know, where me and my wife haven't been on the best terms while I was at work, right? And I always say, and you know, she'll attest to this, I always say, don't argue with me while I'm at work, you know, because anytime I leave could be my last time. And I've said this so many times, and I feel like when we say it, a lot of times we say it without the real understanding, because that's hammered in your head from the academy, right? You know, you can die. You could get lost. You can, you know, however it happens, you can fall through a roof. There's so many dangers in this job that, you know, you could be going to work and not coming home. And so for me, right, I always said it, but I almost never believed it.
Yo, 100%.
Right?
I think it's like just always something I kept in the back of my mind, but maybe I got a little comfortable. You know what I mean? Like I always knew, especially in my position, like, you know, a decision I make can cost one of these guys and myself my life. But I think it came out to the forefront even more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
After this, and that's what got me with the whole like thinking about what Nuke had to go through. For me as an officer, it was just really hard to take, because it's like, in reality, like that rides on our shoulders a lot.
Right.
It's easy to just take a pipe and just follow your officer and go. I can't say it's just easy, right?
Easier.
But it's a lot less decision making
just
having
do
to
what
be
you're
made when you're just doing that.
You know what? But it is and it's not. If you're an astute firefighter, it's not, because you're not just a pipe guy.
Right.
And you know, really the really good or the great officers are going to take everybody's thoughts, their opinions on you know, a situation into consideration. They're going to, if I say to you, yo, Lou, yo, be careful of this over here, like, or I saw this happening. Let's just be aware as a good officer, which, you know, I would say not because you're my friend, but because of what I've seen from you. I feel like you are an officer that would take that into consideration. And I'm not saying that Nuke didn't. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying for you, and speaking to you, you know, we're a team. No one person does this alone. No one person goes in alone. And I think what's you know, obviously from what we know, right? Because I wasn't there at the fire and you guys weren't with Nuke and Rico. From what we know, Nuke went back.
He went back to get him.
You know, and so he can hang his hat on the fact that
he went above and beyond.
Right.
Even though he was running out of air.
And to also to touch a little bit on what you were saying about like the things that, you know, the guilt you feel and the things that you guys could have done better, and you guys speaking about the time, right? I think when everything was said and done, right? I think from the point of Mayday to the point of extraction, I want to say was like 11 minutes or something like that, right? It was, to put that into perspective, they did a study, and it says in this study that on average, it took 8 to 9 minutes for one RIT team to reach a down firefighter, a down firefighter. It then took an average of 22 minutes to find, package, and secure an alternate air supply. 22 minutes. It took, on average, 12 firefighters to rescue one down firefighter, right? So to put into perspective what you were feeling and the guilt, and I think that's natural, right? And I can't say I felt that because I wasn't in that position, but not only were we dealing with getting Rico out, right, as a department, we were dealing with getting Nuke out. And the sentiment that you had, that you didn't know if it was a second person or whatever, from everybody that was on scene or everybody that I've talked to, when they were pulling Nuke out, they thought they were pulling Rico out. They had no idea that there was another person down.
I literally only thought there was one person, and we had extricated both firefighters nearly at the same time.
Same time.
So I never saw nuke.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I never experienced that. When people were talking about the rescue, we were doing the same thing. And even like from what I could recall, because to this day I haven't listened to the recordings, but from what I could recall, over the radio, it only sounded like one rescue was going on.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
And I listened to it, and I couldn't listen for
I
too long. But from what I listened to, it sounded like one person.
So I don't.
It sounded like you can hear it, right? But I think it's a lot easier to sit back when you're not in the situation and you're just almost analyzing it to hear and go, okay, that was that.
When you're not emotionally.
Right. But when you're in the situation and things are going and you got not only a mayday to deal with, but you got fire still pushing somewhere and you got, smoke over here and you got a, trapped victim or whatever it is that you got. There's so many factors that were involved in it. It was hard to tell. And I think that the department, the men and women that were working, I would say I'm proud to be a part of that department and know that, when the chips were down, everybody was working. And, it's really something to be said, about that. And I think that everybody's going to feel guilt. Everybody who had anything to do with that night is going to feel something if they did something different. If they, and I don't know how he feels about this, but I know my uncle has said, like, if I didn't have the kid work for me, this wouldn't happen.
Who knows what it would have been.
Right. And it could have been, I been on the job for however many years, maybe it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I know a lieutenant that I'm close with that was like, they felt like, what if,
It was somebody else.
the same thing that you're feeling, I'm sure every officer has felt, you know what I mean?
And I appreciate you bringing those statistics up, and I use those statistics to try to like help me like get through the guilt that I had, and I still
Doesn't really.
it doesn't. I mean, at the end of the day, I tell myself that's not.
You
don't
say
know.
I was in there for 11 minutes, but I was there and it felt like I was in there forever.
Yeah, because realistically, like it's not
didn't
like,
feel like
we got to him. We got to him pretty quickly. We didn't get to extricate him as quick as we probably wanted to.
Yeah.
Because we hit a couple obstacles.
Yeah.
So I think about like that a lot.
Yeah. And it's so time sensitive. I will say
And just so much of that call, just I have probably a lot of anger about that call. So there's a lot of mixed emotions there.
I have a couple of takeaways from this event, and I will say that this event really changed my life. One, unlike you guys, for some ridiculous reason, I never considered the fact that I could die in a fire until this day. This event made me acknowledge my mortality and the fact I left every day for overnights, for day tricks, with the intention to come back home, whether it was a good day or a bad day. I never imagined, right? And so there's that. Two, it impacted me in the sense of, right, while we can speculate, I struggle with the idea that I'll never really know what happened. And for me, I can only process things by making sense of them, and I can't make sense of why my friend is no longer here, right? And so what ended up happening is, I remember in the academy, one of the things they taught us the first time they gave us our packs, they made us run the tower, and they said, here's the thing. And it's probably something we should have did more often. They were like, do not take the mask off until it sucks to your face. We need you to know what that feeling is like so that you know what your response should be. And I remember the immense anxiety I had, first of all, just listening to that vibe alert, waiting for it to go off, right? And you know, when you're not really active, now the vibe alert seems like you got forever, right? So I'm just listening. That's all. And finally, it sucks to my face. And all I had to do was push this button and turn. And I remember the sheer panic that I felt for those whatever seconds it took for me to take the regulator off. And so my mind, I struggled because all I can imagine is, what did he go through in those last moments? Like, how terrifying must it be to know that you don't have the option to just pull your regulator off and it's over? And I would wake up night after night going through, I would be in that position. It'd be pitch black, regulator stuck to my face, and I know I can't pull it off. And I would wake up every moment from that section of my dream. And I just felt so terrible because I keep thinking like, man, if we'd have got there sooner, maybe I should have went in first. Maybe I could have got him off of whatever he was stuck on easier. I don't know, right? The truth of the matter is you'll never know.
You'll never know. You know, the crazy thing is that I had very similar nightmares, and mine were very specific to, you know, so there were times that I was in not the same position, but almost the same position, right? And I can remember one specific fire that wasn't, it honestly wasn't the craziest fire, but the visibility was no visibility, right?
That's all it takes.
And I can remember, you know, making the fire floor and not being able to see a thing. And then my vibe alert going off. And I remember just the hose must have been tangled up, and I just remember following the hose and just feeling like I was just going in a circle,
Cinnamon bun.
in a circle. And I think in my mind at that moment, right, I was like, this is it. Like, we're on the second floor. I'm not even at the stairs yet. And
how am I going to get out?
Right. And it wasn't a light smoke condition where you could just take your mask off and you know, deal with maybe a little bit of coughing or whatever.
Buy you a couple extra minutes or so, seconds.
It was heavy, and it was thick, and it was dark. And I just remember, you know, I finally found the stairs and I got out. And you know, I never told anybody about that, right? Because I feel like we get to, after the fire's over, it's almost like a distant memory. Like, you don't even really think, oh, that was a close one. You made it out. Everybody made it out. You're like, oh, that's great. And I can remember having very similar nightmare and waking up, you know, after this happened a lot and going like, oh my God. And then feeling the same way you felt. Like, it put me in, you know, his shoes. Like, what was the panic that he was feeling? And, you know, to this day, that shakes me. You know what I mean?
100%.
I feel like, you know, you try to say, you know, when the tone hits, you're still going to respond the same way. But the fact of the matter is, this did something to everybody. And if this didn't do something to you, then you're not being honest.
Not a human being.
Right? You're just not being honest.
The first time when I went back to work and the box tones hit, I don't even think it was an actual box. I think somebody like lit a cigarette on the porch. The level of anxiety that I felt getting dressed to respond, and I think I was on a truck, but it changed me. Now, mind you, the disparity between the last call where I got up on a second alarm, never been in a second alarm fire, and felt like Superman, like, we got this, to the next call, which wasn't even a fire. I was more anxious on that call than my first box.
It's crazy. It's going to affect us forever.
Yeah, I think
I
I was mentioning earlier, so there was the guilt of, you know, could we have done something different? Then there was, you know, just thinking what Nuke had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the last and I want to say this is probably the final thing that hangs on me all the time. But the final thing was his kids. His kids' ages are eerily similar to my two kids.
And that always hit you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have kids on the job, so I'm sure. But it just made me, it was weird. And it made me think, you know,
It could have been any one of us.
yeah.
That easy.
I just, it's just unfair.
It is. It is.
And yeah, so at Sixes, when everything was going on, we were, I don't know, getting together. People were rushing in, and I remember, my brother say he was gonna come in, and I mean, there were a lot of people. You came in, I embraced you, and I was sharing tears with everyone. So I mean, I was just crying. But my brother came in, hugged him tight, told him I loved him. But then my dad came in, and that's when I just melted, because I'm sure, in the same sense that I was thinking of, Rico's kids, he's here thinking, because he's now retired battalion chief, but he's thinking,
And here's my boys.
that he not only that could have been his son, but that I had to experience that alone. And I remember him just passing everyone, and everybody knows my father. It's hard for him to pass a ton of people to just come straight to me on a normal day. And that day he just came straight to me, and I just bawled my eyes out. Just thinking, I don't know, it was just a crazy feeling. Like this didn't have to happen.
Right. I remember seeing you. I remember embracing you. I remember, and I think, to be honest with you, I think this was before I knew that you guys even, had hands on him. I remember walking in from the apparatus floor and seeing Kyle. And I saw Kyle was embracing Eddie Taylor and bawling. And then I saw my uncle, and my uncle wasn't good. And he I know my uncle, and he shows his emotions in different ways, but I know when he's feeling what he's feeling. And knowing that, obviously, if it was anybody, right? If it was any one of us, but knowing that it was Rico, and we had really started to get this really good relationship, and just knowing, the life he had, I couldn't imagine being there and feeling what you guys felt. And then I was in the back of the apparatus floor with Boz and Riggett, and Riggett was inconsolable, and we were sitting there, and I just remember thinking, me and Riggett were in the academy together, and that was his officer, right? And I've never seen him emotional.
Yeah, he was always well put together.
You know what I'm saying? I've never seen him emotional. And, it was surreal, still is to this day. And I just think that, Rico forever changed us.
100%.
And I'll say this because I don't want it to be so ominous, but he changed us in through his life and through his death, right? It wasn't just his death that changed us, because his life was, he made an impact. To anybody who knew him, he made an impact.
Yes, he did.
And if you knew him, and that would be why it touched you so much. Not only that it just was, obviously it was another person, but this was somebody who was a lover of life. You know what I mean? a lover of people.
It's funny you should say that too. In the academy, you know, his wife and my wife were friends, and we went out on a double date. And what was interesting is this like, I guess this like homeless guy walked up, and it was really funny because to watch, you know, typically, you know, I'm usually the, you know, and the guy walks up. And Rico was just so cool with him. The guy comes up and he sparked a conversation. Because, you know, typically the females are like, oh, who is this guy? He looks dangerous. And when I say he introduced, he said, yeah, man, I'm Ricardo, man. What's up with you? And he had a conversation with this guy. And I just sat and observed. And I was like, wow, man, like, that's a philosophy I was always taught, man. You can learn something from anybody. And he treated this man with respect as if he walked up with a 3-piece suit. And it was refreshing because you don't see people like that all the time. Most time people are dismissive or, oh man, I'm out with my lady right now. But he shot the breeze with this guy, was cool as the other side of a pillow, like no indignation, nothing. It was like one of the guys walked up. And so when you say he was a lover of life, man, you couldn't have hit the nail on the head any better. He appreciated humans. And what's interesting is, you know, the irony is Rico loved the job, and he was always the one. Listen, sometimes we would get mad because he would always volunteer. You know, in the academy, there's always something to do. And he was our squad leader, so if he said it, it was it.
Right.
He would always volunteer for the extra duty or whatever. We're like, damn, yo, chill out, bro. But he will forever be remembered as a hero and a firefighter. And that's one thing you can't take away from him. If you had to find the silver lining.
And now,
He's it.
it's time for our hero of the day. Brought to you by the good folks at the Watch Booth.
So I think it's only appropriate that we announce Ricardo Torres as our hero of the day. You know, this job, sometimes you can really undervalue life, the risks that we take, and everything that we could possibly take for granted. And we had already mentioned it today, but Rico made the ultimate sacrifice. You know, it's not spoken enough because obviously his death looms large over that fire, but you know, we unfortunately had to sacrifice Rico, and we had no citizen casualties. It was a large home. I forget how many. It was a large family there. So, you know, we lost no citizen casualties. So to me, Rico, you know, I'll never think that his death was in vain.
He'll always be a hero.
He'll always
And
be
he'll
a hero.
be remembered as a hero. And you know, obviously, right, the unfortunate thing about his children, and they're so young that they'll never really know their dad, but they'll always know that he was a hero. And that may not give them solace. But at some point when they're older, hopefully they know that their father was a hero. He was a hell of a man. You know, and the people on the department and his shift are, I believe, doing a good job in staying involved with them and making sure that they lack as little as possible. Obviously, you can never fill those shoes, but you know, you can try to do something. So I will say, please and thank you be very similar to last week, but maybe a little bit more specific in that, you know, please, if you know somebody who is a New Haven firefighter who was affected by this, his family, you know, his parents, his wife, his
kids,
anybody who loved him, Nuke, if you know Nuke, just, you know, be mindful and, you know, send blessings their way, love on them.
Nuke, aka Lieutenant Samad Rankins.
Yeah, because this is what, 7 months ago, but the wounds are still fresh, and I don't think they'll ever heal.
No.
Yeah.
And he lives with that guilt as well, trying to figure out what he can do, what he could have done better, and also the psychological struggle with the fact that, like, he almost lost his life. You know what I mean? That's an aspect that I can't relate to. Yeah, I lost a friend and I have this guilt of what could I have done better, when reality is there's probably nothing you could have done. But then to also add the element, I mean, when you really think about it, man, he risked his life too, man. You know?
And I'd like to take a sharper approach to it, please and thank you, if you don't mind. And I apologize if this comes off too sharp, but my please and thank you is going to be, if you know a firefighter, you ever come across a firefighter, don't ever joke about just, oh, all you guys do is sit around and eat all day. All you guys do is watch TV all day. All you guys do is put ladders up and save kittens. Like, no, that's not what we do. Yeah. You can say, yeah, you can find that there's downtime in the fire department, sure. At the end of the day, though, we have to risk our lives going to these fires. And if you're not volunteering your life to do it, if you're not willing to run into a burning building, I don't want to hear any joking, because unfortunately, you know, we had to pay, and many departments go through this, unfortunately, but, you know, we had to pay that sacrifice in order to make sure that we keep you safe. So all I ask is, please be mindful when you joke. I mean, jokes are jokes. You got to know when it's appropriate. But yeah, just please be mindful when you're joking around with a firefighter, because you really don't know what they've seen, what we've been through. I feel like we've tried to remain on point with this, and just being aware that firefighters typically see probably more than what you would think. They endure more than what you think. And it's not always easy to process.
And like we said last week, you never know where anybody is mentally, emotionally. That could be the last jab and a low point for somebody to push them over the edge. I know how I struggle with this guilt, and just the imagery, the things that I don't want to re-see again, but when I close my eyes, they're there. So it's, you know, sacrificing sleep because it's not going to be peaceful. It's all these different things. And to have someone minimize what we do, it's a slap in the face, to be honest with you. Like you said, yeah, there is downtime. But that downtime pales in comparison to that one time that you have to pull your friend out of a fire.
I would have traded a lot of downtime for that night. Yeah. And we weren't even supposed to be there. We were covering, actually, the only reason why we were on Engine 11 that night, responding to that fire, is because another company was out on a call. We were never supposed to be there that night.
So,
yeah,
I think, you know, I don't want to apologize to the viewers, because these last 2 episodes were down, because I think that is something that we needed to one, get off our chest. We needed to provide some context, because obviously throughout this, you're probably going to hear us say more and more about the year that we had. You know, obviously these 2 tragedies were 6 days apart. And so we're still reeling, right?
And we're not going to be done reliving it, because the full reports of of that fire of that night having even come out.
Come out.
Yeah. So there's a lot our department's going to continue to go through over this next probably year or so.
But moving forward, we're going to try to get back to being a little bit more light, having a little bit more fun, and
more commercials.
Right. And we hope that you stay with us, and if you're not with us yet, you
join us.
Come join us. Like, comment, subscribe, share, subscribe so you can get the bell notifications.
Yeah.
And with that, I just want to say rest in peace to Rico.
Rest in peace, Rico.
We love you.
Rest in peace, Rico.
We miss you,
man.
Tornado.
It's crazy. It's like a bad dream. And I don't even know how to feel right now. I'm shocked. Heartbroken. It's like we had our chest carved open. And I don't know how to start coping. Cause most of the time these feelings aren't spoken. We lost will. We ain't over that yet. I ain't swallowed that pill. Been in denial, that shit bother me still. And Rico died, now I'm feeling hollow for real. Calling the father to